Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to Talking Devils podcast. I'm your host, Keane, here this evening. We're here today to talk the biggest fixture in English football is Liverpool versus Manchester United at Anfield on Sunday. And no two better men to discuss this game here with me this evening. To the right of me, joined by former Manchester United defender Lee Lawrence, and right below me, joined by former Manchester United striker Bill Marsh as well. Lads, the international break is over. Thank God the international break is over. As an Irishman who had to watch us play very defensive football against Portugal and lose in the last minute, which was painful. And then also play a very bad game at home and win 1-0. But Hungary still get a goal against Portugal despite Ronaldo's brilliance, which means I'm not watching Ireland in the World Cup this year. Actually, next year in America, which isn't a surprise. We never qualified for anything. So you two are England got results and you're going to the World Cup. So it's a good thing that Man United are back because it's been a weird mixed up season. We played very well in games and we haven't got results. Then we played okay in games and got results. So it's been a mixed bag. But it's good to be back, and it's good. I suppose we had a good 2 weeks to recharge the batteries after a turbulent start to the season. Lee, obviously this fixture brings a lot of debate. It brings a lot of excitement. It brings a lot of nervousness to the fan base, no matter where we are in the table when we play against Liverpool. Obviously, you've played for the club. You're obviously a fan of the club. What does this fixture mean to you as someone associated with Manchester United?
Well, first of all, good evening, lads. Good evening, everybody else. I'm so glad, like you just said, that the international break's over. I'm not a massive fan of international football, as I've stated many a time on this podcast. And what a game to come back to. You know, United and Liverpool still, for me, the biggest game of the season, the highlight of the season, away at Anfield. Both teams really in a, Liverpool probably I've never thought I'd say this, but more of a mini crisis than we have at the moment. It's going to be very interesting. To answer your question, mate, being any United supporter will tell you it's massive, in it. It's United and Liverpool, goes back from generation to generation. One of the biggest derbies and biggest rivalries in English football. Means the absolute world to both sets of clubs and supporters to get a result. A lot of times we're not bothered how we get the result. We just want one. And unfortunately for us, I don't think we've won away at Anfield until 2016, which doesn't really bode well for us, if I'm being honest. But again, we've got to take a couple of positives out of it. Liverpool are on a little bit of a losing streak. They've not really performed all season. They've done a little bit of a mini United where we've done it upon season. We brought in millions and millions of pounds for players. Thought it's going to be revolutionary and transition us and get us back to the top. And as we well know as a club, that can take a long time. With Man United, a very, very long time to get that process going. So, I don't know. I can't predict it. I really can't. I've been going over it all week. I've been going over it over the last few hours. What I think the outcome will be, and it's for me, it's just one of them games. This one where I just cannot predict what's going to happen. I think if I go with my head, I think that we'll get beat. I'll not hide that. I think if my heart tells me that, and I want to believe that, we had a decent game against Sunderland. We've shown in glimpses in games that we are progressing, especially in the attacking third. But again, that's not been prominent. It's only been in glimpses. I think realistically, I thought about this earlier. The only time I really feel that we looked like we was getting somewhere was the Arsenal game, which we lost. So that speaks volumes for what I think. But I genuinely thinking every game that we've played this year, the only real positive we had was a loss against Arsenal. I worry. My main worry and my main concern is I do think at some point Liverpool will click. And knowing Liverpool, knowing what's happened over the last few years, I've just got that they may click on Sunday and we may all be having a very gloomy podcast next week.
Well, if it's anything like our Sunderland podcast, with the two of us I think we just went to absolute town, didn't we? I think we came off the podcast 2 weeks ago. We just went, wow. Surely we can't have a podcast like that again next week. Surely not.
Got to be a bit more upbeat, mate. Or else I think the podcast will end up failing if we just keep absolutely hammering on week in, week out.
Yeah, Wayne might sack us next week. We might be in the down the job centre with Ruben Amorim maybe next week.
Hopefully, mate, if we get a result and we can kick on, the podcast will be a much happier place.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. Phil, obviously we've had multiple discussions on this podcast, and obviously on my own individual one years ago, about this fixture many a times, and this fixture obviously I think it does something to I suppose the players and the fans, where regardless of where Liverpool and Man United can be in the table, it almost like form nearly goes out the window, because you look at, there was times when obviously in the 90s and early 2000s when we were cleaning up and Liverpool would still come and do us and get results. I remember Danny Murphy years ago, those scoring them goals when we were after winning the league, or the 4-1 at Old Trafford, in 2009 as well. There's been times when they've done us, but there's times when we've done them in recent years. Obviously the most recent one being at Old Trafford in the FA Cup, the Amad Diallo show. What do you think it is about this fixture that kind of A, puts form out the window, but B, players seem to kind of go onto a different planet, a different world almost in this game?
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, it's one of my favourite fixtures. Obviously, thinking back to when I played at the club as well, I just think there's always something special. Obviously, we know about the rivalry. We know about, obviously, the bragging rights. And obviously, as you say, a lot of the time, form goes out the window. Obviously, we've had some crazy results over the years on both ends, which is great, really, because it obviously brings the unknown factor into, what's going to happen. I just hope that, obviously the way we've started the season, been a little bit up and down, not really any continuity. I'm hoping that we can sort of impose ourselves in the game, because I think it's a good time to play Liverpool, if I'm being honest. I think obviously at the moment they're in a bit of a bad run of form. They've lost 3 games on the spin. Still players trying to fit into systems, and maybe the manager not knowing his best side, and try and play in different positions. So for us, I think it's a good opportunity to play and try and take advantage of that and get a decent result. So yeah, feeling a little bit more optimistic than probably I would be in previous times going to Anfield. But again, you've got to turn up. You've got to do the hard work. You've got to make sure that you're up for the battle. That in that type of game, that particular fixture especially, being one of a few, isn't about the performance, especially in the first 15-20 minutes, about imposing yourself on the game, winning your individual battles.
Lee, if you lost Phil there.
I've lost him, mate. Yeah, I've lost Phil too, mate. Yeah. I think he's probably going to have to reset it and start. Are you back, Phil?
Sorry, did it go off then, lads? Apologise. Did it?
Off a little bit.
Are you back there?
Can you hear me, Keane? Sorry, I think it's not great today. Yeah,
I can hear you now. Sorry. Yeah,
I think I might have dropped it. Yeah. Did you hear what I was saying then? For the most part, I think.
Hold it, Mr.
When I dropped out and what.
Yeah, we did dropped out.
So I was just basically saying, I think it's a good time. Yeah, I'll try and refresh it and see if I can come back in. But yeah, I'll do that now, and then hopefully it's not an issue. Obviously, for the rest of the pod. Just give me 30 seconds.
Yeah, no worries at all. So, Lee, obviously, Phil mentioned there about imposing yourself at Anfield. I think it's one of them grounds, isn't it, where I think the first 10, 20 minutes of the game is always so crucial because obviously their fans are normally up for it in this type of fixture. And especially I think this weekend, especially where there's, I think a lot of pressure on Arne Slot to get a result because Phil mentioned there, they've obviously lost the last 3 games. Joe, I suppose they've brought in nearly 500 million worth of players in the summer as well. So, do you think that, like Phil mentioned, that first 10, 20 minutes on Sunday is going to be crucial in terms of how we adapt to the game, but also as well, I suppose, how important it is for Liverpool to start well, considering they've kind of had not a bad start because look, they're a point off top. You can't really consider that a bad start, but maybe by their standards that they set last year that they've had a bad start.
Look, for me, Liverpool's going to come out all guns blazing. Like I say, they're going to try and prove a point, and what better way they can prove that point against their old rivals, Man United. I think for United, that first 20, 25 minutes is absolutely crucial. Dependent on how Ruben decides to, what shape and what team he puts out. I think the most important thing is we're still in the game at half time. I think when Phil was on about imposing yourself on the game, it's definitely not a game where you can bury your head in the sand. You've got to have it's all right having individual brilliance, which we have got a lot of players with a lot of individual brilliance. But for me, the most important part is stand up and be counted. Every man for man on that pitch on Sunday, mate, on that starting 11 is going to have to stick the chest out, put the foot in where it hurts, run as hard as they can, chase every ball, keep tight, and make sure we're still in that game at half time and make sure that it's not running away from us. I think if we do that, we have got a real chance. Again, it'd be interesting later on in the podcast to see what we think the team is, what he's going to pick, whether he's going to go defensive or whether he's going to go more attacking minded or whether he's going to have a strategy where, he starts us off more compact within midfield and goes more defensive and then tries to impose ourselves later on in the game. If we're still in it, that's going to be an interesting point to get on with the podcast. But I think definitely for me, it's going to be every single man out there has to put 110% in, no matter your ability. And I think that will be after battle. And if we can get through, like I say, and get that done at half time, I really do think we've got a fighter's chance. But again, it all depends on what Liverpool turn up, mate. It all depends whether they click, who turn up, because I genuinely believe if they click, we will not have enough in our squad to deal with them. So, like I say, that first 45 for me is crucial that we're still in the game, mate.
And Phil, obviously, first of all, welcome back. He obviously, Lee mentioned there about it clicking. Obviously, they've signed 2, I think, top players in Florian Wirtz and Alexander Isak. We obviously know everything about Isak in terms of what he can do. We've seen from his Newcastle days, he has hurt us in the past. And look, he's been, in my opinion, up there with Haaland in terms of the best strikers in the Premier League last season. When you look at, let's say, their starts of the season, is that telling the whole story of how they've adapted to Liverpool Football Club? Or do you think, for example, Pogba came to us in the past and it took him a while to get going. And then when he did get going, he was a good player. But obviously scrutiny came his way because he had a big price tag. Do you think it's a case where obviously Man United and Liverpool are just 2 gargantuan clubs, and when you go to a club for that much money, there should be kind of an allowance to have a kind of an adaptation period?
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I think the 2 lads there you've just mentioned in Wirtz and Isak, when you look at the starts they've made, obviously, talk about Wirtz in the first instance. I think, I wouldn't necessarily say he's had a bad start. I just think because of the expectation and obviously the stuff that we've seen in the German league, I think a lot of people's opinions on, maybe some of his performances are that he's not quite, hit the ground running as much as they would have expected. But, I wouldn't necessarily be too upset or disappointed in terms of, some of the stuff I've seen. Obviously, I don't watch all the Liverpool games, but I think, he's just finding his feet and he's just trying to, I think the manager's just trying to find, where his best position is. I think he played him off the left against Crystal Palace the other day. That didn't quite work. Obviously, they've signed a lot of quality players, so they're trying to, try and fit all them players into a system that accommodates everyone. You've got two strikers in Ekatike and Isaac, who are sort of jostling for that, central striker position. So I think they're just in a bit of a moment where they've got a really good squad, they've got a lot of quality players, and they're just trying to, find which, formation basically suits them best so they can get them all in, and that, everyone can sort of be in a position where they can get the best out of them. So yeah, I think, from a Liverpool point of view, it's not a matter of, if. I think it's just when. And obviously when it does click, I'm sure, them players have got the quality to, hurt teams and sort of deliver the goods. So I think at this moment in time, as I said before, it's probably a good time to play them because obviously they're off the back of a few bad results. They've not won in 3, and obviously they're in this little period where the manager's, adapting and flirting with different formations and trying to, find out what his best team is. So hopefully we can take advantage of that and, as I say, start the game fast, win your individual battles, make sure you're up for the fight, and, it's up to Liverpool then to sort of, battle away through it and as the home side try and, show their dominance. But as I say, I believe that we're good enough to get a result. I think we'll definitely score. I just think it's about, as a defensive unit, can you be disciplined? Can you be, solid? Can you make sure that you've got, people who are willing to, cover for each other, help each other out, put the bodies on the line and go that extra yard really to try and get a result, because you inevitably them kind of games you're going to need 11 players that are going out there with that kind of mentality to get a result.
And Lee, just on that, obviously Phil mentioned that that obviously Wirtz hasn't been as good as hasn't been as bad as what some people would mention. Do you think the scrutiny for, and maybe I suppose across multiple different media outlets, do you think maybe certain Manchester United players, let's say in the last decade, have been given an unfair brush from the media compared to, let's say, Florian Wirtz, who is adapting? We all know he's adapting. He's coming from big money, and obviously he's a young player, so he's going to need time to adapt to the Premier League, a new city, to a new culture, all that type of stuff. But then if you look at other players, like let's say Benjamin Sesko, for example, The Athletic recently put out a piece that agents have determined that he's the worst signing of the summer, when he's performing better than Florian Wirtz at this moment in time. Do you think there's I suppose, not to sound like a tinfoil hat here, but like a Man United agenda nearly in the media when you look at certain signings, certain situations, and I suppose the way things are reported on us compared to, let's say, a Liverpool where they're making up new stats for Florian Wirtz, where when it was Jadon Sancho a couple of years ago, they're running the James Bond gimmick of 007 and all this type of stuff.
Look, it's Man United, mate. We all know it's no secret. I think if every partial or impartial supporter in the land would tell you that the scrutiny United get compared to anyone else in any individual club or an individual player for United is massively heightened compared to your Liverpools, your Newcastles. There's been some absolute shockers, hasn't there, with other teams, don't get me wrong, and they don't get half the stick and abuse. And I think that just comes with the nature of the club. We're one of, if not still the biggest club in the world, one of the biggest fan bases, one of the most revenued club. It's been this way for a long time now. They want to kick United whenever they can. It's a lot of it is unfair. A lot of it shouldn't happen, but unfortunately it does. But I suppose when you come and sign for a club like Man United, you've got to expect that's going to happen, and you've got to have the mentality to be able to deal with it. And it's end of the day, you're all you need to do is believe in your own ability, believe that you're worth the price tag that they give you, and when it does click for you, then obviously you know that you're going to be worth your weight in gold. So yeah, it's very unfair what we get, and I disagree with a lot of it. But again, it's on the individual to get through that and to prove that he is better than the media, if you will, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Do you know what I think as well, Lee, just to touch on that as well? I think because of how many signings we've had in, obviously, the last 4 or 5 years haven't worked out, and they've been, not nowhere near value for money. It's quite easy to just tarnish all the signings with the same brush. And if they don't start, straight off the bat and hit the ground running and set the world alight, you just put them in the same bracket as all these other failures that we've had, because we've had so many. So obviously, really, part of that isn't their fault, but I think because of the recruitment from the club's point of view has been so bad in the last 5-6 years, and a lot of the players have failed, it's quite easy to just put that player in that category straight away if they don't hit the ground running straight away, because they've seen it so many times over and over. It's like repetition, fresh in your memory. United signing another flop. So it's just one of them things that happens over time. If something's been happening consistently over a period of time, it gets set in your mind, and as soon as someone comes in, they just get instantly put into the same sort of category as previous failings, which is unfair in a few cases. So,
to be fair, Phil,
just thought I'd add
that. As a fan, how many times do you sign a new player, and before they've kicked a ball, I don't know if you're the same. I'm an absolute nervous wreck for them. If they don't start well, come in, and you're willing. For me, I'm willing everything for them to hit the ground running, to get that first 90 minutes and show they've got something. Because the minute they don't, that the bombardment from the media is going to come, and straight away they're going to be a failure. That they don't even give United players time to bed in. They don't give them that. It's rather they're an instant success. Or how many times have you heard is the worst signing of the season, the worst signing they've ever had? It's on and on and on. So yeah, it's unfair. But again, the players
comes to the territory, don't they?
Any player what signs now for United, they're going to have to get that, and they're going to have that self-confidence and believe to know that. Look, I believe in my own. I know I'm better than what the media is going to portray me, and I'm here to prove everybody wrong. And I think that's the difference now when you sign for United compared to signing probably for any other team in the world. You don't have that blanket of the first 3 or 4 games to show what you can do. You've got to show paid up.
Yeah. I think that should fuel you, though, as a player. Like, if you're coming into a club, that should fuel you to sort of want to prove people wrong. And obviously, form straight away might not be exactly where it needs to be, but you've got to do everything else within your power to get the fan base on side. And what I mean by that is you've got to work your plums off. You've got to make sure that you look like you're interested. You're doing the right things. You're making the right runs. You're being aggressive. You're being, positive, and you're trying to do everything to make people think, oh, well, do you know what? He's not quite, hit the level that we know he can, but, he's working his socks off. He's putting a tackle in. He's getting across his man. He's winning headers. He's being brave. He's asking for the ball. He looks like he wants to be there. I think a lot of times when we've signed players in the past, we give them that maybe 4 or 5 months to get a feel for the league, but then you sort of saying, well, you need to do a little bit more than just, stroll through games and, go through the motions. We want to see a little bit of something, because you can't just sign for Man United and expect to be given 12 months to just have a bit of a jolly up. You've got to show that you want to be there and do the right things, and hopefully then as time goes on, that brings the performance levels up. I think that's where we've been, guilty in the past of some of the signings, especially in recent years. Obviously, not performing, not working hard, not having the right attitude, doing things outside of football that aren't helping them on the sort of, getting the fans on side. So, yeah, I think a lot of it is on the player as well. You can't just maybe, blame the sort of fan base for the criticism. Really, you've got to own it yourself, I think, more.
Yeah, I think Cunha's probably a prime example of that, Phil, at the minute, where he's probably not hit the ground running as he wants to, but he looks like he's playing for the club. He looks like he's playing for the badge, and he looks like he'll run through a brick wall to try and get himself and play himself into a bit of form. Hopefully, I'm hoping that Cunha does click. I think, like I say, his work ethic's there. I think his ability's there. And I think the fans will give him time because of the exact reason you just said. He does look like he'll run through a brick wall to get there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. And even Patrick's comment here, he says, "Evening, gents, on the new signings, the media and pundits hate extends, and even before they actually sign. Number of times they say Cunha and Bremo and Sesko shouldn't sign for United. Hater isn't from anyone but United." So yeah, 100%. And it goes back to the point I was making earlier. It's like when these outlets are saying Sesko is the biggest flop of the summer when he's two goals, 2 games, and he's hit. In my opinion, he's starting to hit the ground running. Whereas you look at players like, I'm going to mention it because we're playing Liverpool now. Etitike, yes, he's hit the ground running. I think he's going to be a top footballer. He looks really, really good. Isak has taken a while, but he didn't have a pre-season, so that's bound to happen. They're making up stats for Florian Wirtz and saying he's the most stats in this, he's the most in that, but for like £120 million, he should, in my opinion, while he's adapting, should be doing more. Because Paul Pogba didn't get that grace. When Paul Pogba, at his same time, re-signing for United, done more. But because he's Paul Pogba playing for Man United, different story. But again, maybe because United have won so much down the years, and Sir Alex set standards that, there is standards you have to hold to. But at the same time, I do really think that, look, because we, I suppose, get so many likes, so many clicks, the publicity sells in a way. And I think that's where, negative publicity especially, everyone loves a bit of doom and gloom naturally. Everyone on the internet just loves that type of stuff. So that's naturally where people will gravitate towards. And that's why these stories get kind of leaked out. And there's a different story on Ruben Amorim every second day on his future and his system. And a lot of people are actually fixate on that. Look, there's nothing you can do about it. You just kind of have to, if both you lads know this, if you're playing for Man United, that has to be nice. That has to be external. That has to be, out of your sight. The biggest priority is playing for the shirt and playing for the badge. And I think it goes without saying, especially this weekend, all that outside noise has to be non-existent. Especially in this game, because this game is the most important game of the season. Every time the fixture list comes out, every fan, I dare to say every player, checks when we play Liverpool at Anfield. Liverpool fans will be checking when we play Man United at Old Trafford. So it's one of them. I think, if you're going to play for Man United, the first thing you need to know is I'm going to be scrutinised every single week, and then the second thing you need to know is I need to work hard every week, because that's just the minimum expectation when you play for Man United, is that you work hard and you run every week. Some players don't do that, but it is what it is. But I'd like to obviously move on to the game on Sunday, because Lee, you mentioned Matheus Cunha. He had an okay start, got a bit of an injury that's kind of after slowing him down a bit, so he's kind of, he had a bit of a start to his Man United career, but he's shown a lot of promise. In the time that Cunha's been out, Mason Mount has come back into the team, and he's proven to be a very crucial player, and not only, I think, from an offensive point of view, but definitely going back the way he's been very good, and he's stopped a lot of transitions happening against us. Do you look at this left-sided 10 position as a bit of a headache for Ruben Amorim, considering you've Cunha, you've Mount, you've Bruno, potentially even Cobby can play there as well? Do you think, is it a good headache? Is it a bad headache to have, especially when you have, I suppose, so many egos fighting, not saying it in a bad way, but so many top professionals fighting for that position, but also players we've spent a lot of money on as well?
It's a fantastic headache to have, mate. As a manager, it's an absolutely fantastic headache to have, because at the end of the day, them players are going to want to be starting and be one of them names on that 11 on that sheet on Saturday or Sunday. So they're gonna work. They're not going to get comfortable on the training pitch. They're going to know they've got competition now. Like I said, Cunha's going to know if he doesn't hit the ground running and, start showing what we all think he is going to become. And I genuinely think Cunha is going to become one of our real good players over the next few seasons. I've still got a massive amount of belief in his ability and his attitude. Really like him. Fantastic. He's having Mason Mount coming back into the side where he's showing, he's actually probably keeping him out the team at the minute, and he could quite possibly keep him out on Sunday. I've been toying with the idea who's going to start there, and I've got a feeling he'll probably start Mason Mount, especially with Cunha playing midweek for Brazil. So as a manager and for a club to have players on form in the same positions is nothing but a great thing to happen. You at the end of the day, we've had it where over the years, like Phil mentioned, with players not running hard and not doing the right things, what they should be doing day to day. They're comfortable. They know they had no one to take the place at the end of the day, so they could get away with having a slack training session or doing things off the pitch that they shouldn't probably have done because they know that they're not going to get replaced because the quality wasn't there behind them to replace them. So for me, yeah, it's fantastic. I'd like to see a team actually where, like I say, we had a quick chat before the podcast, quick 5 minutes. I must have wrote 20, 30 teams down here, which I'm still trying to figure out what's our best team. But I'd like to think there's a team where the vast majority of our better players, like your Cunhas, like your Mason Mounts at the moment, like your Kobe Mainus, like Fernandez, like your Mbuemos, Sesko's, Ahmad.
We didn't even mention Joshua Zirkzee, who had a very good second half of the season last year as well. We forgot about him. There's options there.
Yeah, mate. If we can get them all on form, it's a fantastic problem. The only disadvantage of that is you're going to have some really good players who's still got form for them because when they're coming on, they're doing a great job. They're not going to want to sit on a bench. So that's the side of it. They're going to want to, broaden their careers. They're going to be thinking about their international career. And if they're, again, we use this example with Harry Maguire the other week. I think we had the conversation, do we think he's going to stay at United much longer? Harry Maguire, for me, hasn't done much wrong over the last season. I think he gets in most Premier League teams, starting week in, week out. He's obviously international career's dropped right off now because he's not getting a game. Just so happens that De Ligt's come in and had a great start to the season. So that's the disadvantage of it. You're going to get good players. He's going to fight and probably be doing it on a training field. But if the manager likes a player better than him who's in form, then they're going to probably want to go and look elsewhere. I've got a feeling that's what Zirkzee will end up doing. He'll try, but in the end, if he doesn't get the minutes, which he's not getting at the moment, then I think he'll be one that will be sadly missed. And it's a shame because, like you said, the second half of last season, I think he was one of our best player. He showed a lot of potential, holding the ball up, linking the play up well. I thought he'd have got more of a chance this year. But like I say, we've signed Mbuemo, we've signed Cunha, Mason Mount's done the job when he's come onto the pitch, and we've put a lot of money and a lot of investment into Sesko. So at the minute, it's between a rock and a hard place, and I suppose it's only up to him really to keep going on the training field. And when he eventually get his chance, which he will get a chance this season. And when he does get it, he's going to have to take it in the same way that at the moment Mason Mount has.
100%. And Phil, I wanted to bring these points to you because when you were in and around the first team, when you came through the academy, you were in a shark tank of like strikers, forwards, and wingers. When you look, I suppose, the options we have now, even compared, I know it's nothing compared to what you were around at the time, like your Rooney's, Ronaldo's, Joe Smith, Louis Saha, Ollie, all these lads, Van Nistelrooy. What do you think that breeds when you have them many options up front? And how do you, I suppose, keep these very highly paid professional players happy at the time, considering you have that plethora of talent up front?
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously it's difficult because as a professional footballer, especially as an attacking player, you want to be playing every single game. You want to be playing every week. You want to be scoring goals. You want to be, part of a successful team. So, yeah, I think, obviously my time at the club, there was that in abundance. All the players were keen. All the players were so eager to be in the team. And obviously being in a successful team that, breeds, players being a little bit more happier and obviously The environment that they're training in every single week is just all round a better place to be. I think at the moment, because of obviously how up and down and inconsistent we've been, I think a lot of these players will have in the mind that, it's not a given that any of these players are, starting every single week. So for me, as a player now at this moment in time, if I'm in that first team dressing room, I know I've got to be training well. And when I get my opportunity, I've got to take it, because otherwise there's going to be an opportunity for somebody else at this moment in time, because of, as we said, we've got 5 or 6 names there that could play in any of them front 3 positions. So yeah, it's for me, it's about now looking at, these players that we've got, and it's basically who wants it the most. I think we're in a position now where, as a Man United team, we wouldn't look at a team every single week and say 100% they're playing every single week, and that is like a bit of a strange position to be in, because any top successful side, you probably know 4 or 5 names on the team sheet every single week, and then the other maybe 3 or 4 fluctuate from week to week. I think at the moment, because of where we are, obviously we've had injuries, we've had new signings, all this kind of thing. It's down to these attackers now to nail down that position and start imposing themselves on the team and sort of producing on a weekly basis. Whether that's, with goals and assists, or whether it's just the level of performance. As I said, fans and the manager aren't expecting 10 out of 10s from a technical point of view every single week, but you want to see, and as an attacker, are they doing the right things? Are they being positive? Are they making the right decisions? Are they, beating a man and getting crosses into the box? Are they making the right pass? Are they being brave on the ball? Are they looking a threat? These are all the things, as a manager, you're looking from your attacking players to be doing on a weekly basis. So yeah, I just think whoever basically takes the bull by the horns and sort of can nail down a position at the moment is it's fair game. As I say, there's all these players who want to play, but there's not really one where you'd look at it. Maybe Mbuemo is probably the only one at the minute who you'd say,
yeah, I was about to say
he'll
he's
start
probably
in
the
that
only one you
wide
could say is
position.
definitely
The
nailed
rest,
down.
is all.
I was just going to follow that up, Phil.
I think he's.
So go on, it's okay.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, I think Mbuemo out of the lot is basically the only one who has probably done just about enough at this early stage in the season for me to be like, you know what, every game he's working hard, he looks a threat, he's making the right decisions, and a lot of the time, and he looks a bit of a goal threat. So from the manager's point of view, he's probably thinking, well, yeah, I'm happy with him. And then the other positions, he's probably thinking, well, 1 week it's looking all right, the next week it's not. He's playing well 1 week and then he's low par. So, yeah, I think that's a bit of a headache where really you want to have, your front 3 nailed on every week, building up that relationship together and trying to build from there. And obviously the competition then comes in, and obviously that's what, drives everybody on to want to improve. So.
Yeah. I was going to follow that up, Phil, with obviously using about the attackers there. I think there's only, for me, really, in Ruben's mind, in Amorim's mind, probably 3 players at the moment at the All-11, which he probably trusts to be a full-time starting 3, which I would say would be Mbuemo. That was one of them.
Yeah.
I think Fernandez would be another who would start every game if he could. Yeah. And the moment in time, he'd probably put De Ligt in the back 3. Every time if he could. I think every other position and place is up for grabs at the minute with a number of different players. So, like I said, the main point is they're just going to take the chance when they get it and believe in their own ability and cement that place down. But there's 8 potential positions there where no one's nailed them down yet.
Yeah, and even Aiden's a Liverpool fan. He has a comment in there. Aiden, Liverpool fan here, as a comment in here, says if there's a game that Cunha and Mbuemo can shine in, it's against us on Sunday. Our defence has been too shaky. You both mentioned, obviously, you've all mentioned there about, I suppose, competition for places, and and how tight it can be. And especially, like Lee mentioned there, there's probably only a couple of players who are probably dead certs. They look at a game like this with like the way how Liverpool have helped, I suppose. I won't say bad at they've been at the back. They've been below par to their standards. Do you think that this is a game where, like you said, because you're not guaranteed your place, that you go there and you get a performance out in Anfield that all of a sudden you become a mainstay?
I think if the likes of Mason Mount starts and he puts in a good performance and chips in with a goal or a couple of assists, I think he's on the team sheet before Cunha most games, and it's going to be up to like the likes of Cunha to try and edge him out. Which if he keeps on form, he's gonna struggle. He might need to actually get repositioned in a different position to actually move Mount out of the, or maybe move Mount into a different position to accommodate Cunha back on the width. I think, like I say, it all depends on who performs, mate. Definitely.
And Phil, would you look at Ahmad?
I agree.
Like Ahmad.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say I agree. I think in this kind of fixture, you know, your Liverpools, your Cities, your Arsenals, them kind of fixtures, if you have a good game, I think that elevates your sort of worth in the manager's eyes and maybe gives you a little bit of an edge moving forward. Because I think as a manager, you want to see players be consistent, but I think when you perform against the bigger teams, I think that has more value in terms of, you know, when you're thinking about a team selection, because, you know, at the end of the day, you know, you play your Sunderlands, your Burnleys, all these kind of teams, you would expect any players to be able to put in a performance against them. I think when you play the top teams and you see a performance where you think, yeah, you've ticked a lot of the boxes, I think that holds a lot more weight in terms of, you know, when you're thinking about your selections for sort of, you know, other fixtures moving forward. And I think what's a weird one to think, because I was just thinking then, you know, Man United, as Lee just said there, you've probably only got maybe 3, maybe 4 players you could maybe think is a definite that will start. I don't think there's any other team in the Premier League that, you know, would have less players than that would be a definite starter. I couldn't look at any other team in the Premier League as their manager and they would know, I think, every single week, unless there's injuries, I would think they would know 6 or 7 of their starting players who are nailed on to play in that team. And I think United are probably the lowest in that respect of, you know, players being, you know, brought in and out of the team and chopping and changing, because I just think of how inconsistent we've been. There's no real continuity in the squad, which is alarming at one point. But then again, you've got that competition for players. You've got a lot of new signings. So, you know, we're hopeful that, you know, moving forward, that won't be the case. But at this moment in time, I think we're probably the lowest team with, you know, players who are probably nailed on to start a starting 11.
Yeah.
Do you think that's the system? I was just going to ask, do you think it's the system that actually could cause that problem?
I was just going to say, Keane, you took the words out.
Yeah, as well.
Yeah, I was literally just going to say, Keane, before you said that, it's on a point what I was trying to make just before Phil coming on that point then was, I think, like I said, I'd like to see a team where we could get better players playing together at this moment in time, because he's stuck to this system. Can't do that. It's either you're the best back or you're the best wing back. Do you know, let's go for an example. I know we'd never do it, but let's go for an example. I've written a team down here with a 4-4-2 system. I know we'd never go to that. But that gives you the ability to put Cunha in a front 2 with Sesko, for example, or bring Fernandes and play him off Sesko, or bring Ahmed in on the left. Give Mount a go in midfield with Fernandes or with a Casemiro if they want to go. So it gives us a bit more athleticism in the midfield. I think it's system failure where it won't come away from what he wants and to suit certain games. He just is stuck in that way where if you're a wing back, you're a wing back. You can't be nothing else in his head at this moment with his system, and he won't try and put a decent player in to suit that role. And I think if he'd just come away from that, you might get, if you play the top 2, for example, Xerxes might get more of a game time dropping off Sesko, and linking plays up as a number 9. You know what I mean? I think it's a lot of it is a system where we can only play certain plays at certain times in that same position. We can't try nothing different, which is a shame. In my opinion, anyway, it's a shame.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. That, to be fair, I mean, I didn't actually think of the formation as being a big factor in obviously why we don't have as many players that would be nailed on to start. But when you say it like that, I think, yeah, that probably has got a big reason why there's not as many players that are being played as often as probably would like. I mean, just touching on that as well, when you said about the 4-4-2, I wouldn't mind seeing Mbeumo and Sesko as well, because I think when you look at Mbeumo last year when he was at Brentford playing with Visser and people like that, they had a good relationship, and I think he's got the ability to be able to come in short and also stretch the game and make penetrating runs, which would be a different sort of angle of attack.
And that then, Phil, opens up more opportunity for Ahmad, for example, to then step in where Mbeumo's playing. Do you get what I mean? And things like that. So that's exactly the point. That's where the rotation would work for me a lot better. Where we can try different things, and especially against the lower teams, I will try and do some different. I mean, everyone said, let's be honest, every United fan said it. They wouldn't stick to the same formation week in, week out. We'd play game by game and find out what our best structure is, doing it that way. But I definitely think it's a flaw where players aren't getting minutes because there's no rotation on the system what we play 100%.
Yeah, I'm the same. I look at it like if we went to a 4-2-3-1 right now, like literally Kobe Mainoo gets into the team.
100%.
Bruno's the number 10. Cunha's wide left. Mbeumo's wide right. Sesko's up front. Then all of a sudden, Xerxes your backup number 9 because the system sorts that out. Xerxes your backup number 9. Mount's your backup number 10. Ahmad's your backup right winger. Then the left wing position is obviously interchangeable. Mount can go out there. Ahmad can go out there. Xerxes can play as a kind of an inside left winger as well. He done it last season. And then you've obviously, that's not to mention as well, if we move to even a back four with wingers, wingers in the attacking positions, all of a sudden, young players like Shea Lacey all of a sudden have a chance to break into the team because it's not kind of like, stagnated with number 10. All of a sudden, if you use Joshua Xerxes as a backup number 10 or a backup left winger, let's say, for example, where he's played for us previously last season, all of a sudden, Tito Wobi has a chance to get in as a backup striker up front. Do you know what I mean? So there's other ways where even it like the system change not only would help fringe players within kind of the squad and your squad players, all of a sudden some of the younger lads from the academy could have a chance to break into the team as well. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like I think a system change could benefit us so much in multiple different ways, but it's just the manager, look, maybe to a fault, is just stubborn and it's something he's not going to do. Like,
but one thing I would say about this system, where for me there's a massive flaw in it, I think to play with a back three and your wing backs, I think your wing backs are probably two most important players on the field. And for me, the wing backs we've got aren't wing backs, and they can get up and down. Don't get me wrong, they're athletic in that position, but the final ball week in, week out is poor. There's no quality to them. For me, you need world-class wing-backs who's got that engine and got that ability to defend and attack. But
look at PSG's left and right back, Hakimi and Nuno Mendes. They are perfect example of a wing-back.
Yeah, we get in the Dorgu gets into positions really well, but his final ball more often than not is terrible. Ahmad, I think, is a great player, but again, I'd say a lot of his final ball isn't there at the minute. Dalot, questionable going forward and questionable going backwards time to time. Mazraoui for me is more of a fullback, or much more of a defensive fullback than he is going forward. So for me, when you're playing that formation, what he's stuck on, they're going to have to look at getting world-class wing-backs. So if you don't have that, for me, that formation just does not work.
Yeah, 100%.
I think the other thing as well, what I was just going to touch on, in terms of the formation, like, we know he's not going to change. And to be fair, I think in certain games, I don't think, many fans would begrudge him playing in that style of play. But I think when you're at home against like, your Burnleys and your Sunderlands, that's the type of game where for me, I'd be doing a 4-4-2 or what Keane just said, like a 4-2-3-1, because you're sort of playing a more attacking formation and you're basically saying, before you even kick the ball, right, we're having you today, lads. Not saying, right, we're playing 5 at the back essentially at home to Burnley. I'm going to try and, nick a goal and do 1-0. I think just the actual mindset of looking at a team sheet and going, fucking hell, United are playing 4-2-3-1 here. But they must be, going for it today and having a bit more of an attacking incentive on the game. I think that just the mentality of that, and as well with the players, if you say to them, lads, this week we're doing this, how much more, not maybe freedom that would give the players, but I think that would give them so much more go, oh, right, we're actually having a go this week. We're going for it. We're not just, being negative and pragmatic sitting in. We're actually going to impose ourselves on a game of football and go for the throat from the first minute. You know what I mean? And old school United team, ball down the side.
Yeah. And a lot of players to play the natural positions too, instead of being shoehorned again. You know what I mean? You'll see a player playing a natural position where what he's been his bread and butter from him being a kid, and you'll see him naturally give you a much better performance because he's comfortable being there instead of questioning himself every time he touches the ball. Should I pass here? Should I pass there? He's going to know straight away what he should be doing and playing in the natural position. It's crazy, isn't it? Let's be honest.
And you can go and express yourself. Yeah, you can go and express yourself in a way where, as you just said, that's your position. You've got that freedom. You've got that license to go and do what you need to do and get fans off the seats and wanting to come and watch a game of football. I think that's what's been missing from Old Trafford for a long time in terms of like fans being excited about going to a game of football and sort of knowing what to expect. I think as a United fan, when you go to Old Trafford at the minute, you don't know what to expect from one week to the next. Could be great, could be indifferent, it could be absolutely awful. There's no consistency in the performances, and there's no sort of DNA and template of what United's style is. I think it's just going to be mismatch, and obviously like the performances show that. So yeah, I just think he needs to maybe tweak it in certain games, and obviously if he plays that way, against the big teams and tries to be a little bit more hard to beat, then so be it. But I just think against some of these mid-table and bottom half teams, you've got to just show a bit more bravery and go for it, because you'd rather do that and get beat than just play in a sort of defensive formation and not really have a go as a club the size we are. That's the way you've got to go, I believe, or lose.
Could you imagine playing for, let's say, a bottom half team like a Wolverhampton or a team out of four, or you go to United at home, and United's got a midfield four of Mbeumo, Fernandes, Cunha, Mount, or Cunha, Ahmad, with Sesko and one of them up front? You'd absolutely shit yourself. You would, wouldn't you? You know what I mean? You've got all that attacking players in front of you with the skill, the ability, the agility, which we missed massively in midfield, but put a little bit of agility into that midfield too. Against a lesser team, we should be able to run all over them at the minute. We just play the same formation where we rely heavily on our wing backs to put crosses in for Sesko, who can't put a cross in. And that, I think that it's a massive failure. Massive failure, mate.
Well, yeah, it is one for you, Lee, right? Just take this as a bit of an example. So when we was at the club at Man United, right, before a ball was even kicked, the opposition team in the opposite dressing room would look at the team sheet and they'd go, Rooney, Van Nistelrooy, Ronaldo, Keane, Scholes, Giggs, and the game would be over before you've even kicked the ball, because they'd be like, what chance have we got here today? Just because they've looked at the team sheet and gone, we're in for a long day here today, lads. Now, imagine that team sheet being set up in a way where it was 3 at the back and you had like John no disrespect to any because he's a great players, but you had John O'Shea as a wing back and maybe, like Wes Brown or something. And it was set up in a free, like a more defensive shape. they'd probably still be thinking, "Oh, we've got our work cut out." But the way the team's set up, you'd be like, "Oh, they've gone a bit negative here today. What's going on? Why are they not, playing the normal way?" I think because of the way Amorim's setting teams up, we've got the players to put fear into other teams, but because they're setting up in a certain way, it's not having the desired results. Because, as you said, that 4 across the midfield would automatically put fear into other teams because they know what capabilities they've got. But when they see the formation and the way that we set up, and obviously they know because he never changes, they can prepare for it all week. It's just there for him, and they go, "Oh well, everyone's come to Old Trafford and they've had a go and they've got results here, so why can't we?" You know what I mean? It's just I think a lot of football is psychological.
They don't have to figure it out.
Mate,
a manager doesn't have to figure out what United play like and how to break that down in the week. All they need to say is, watch what such a body did to them. Watch what such a body did to them. Follow that game strategy. They don't play any different. Same players playing the same way.
Because there's no
that work.
Yeah.
Do you know what the thing is when we play this United team as well? If you win your second balls, more often than not, you'll beat this United team just based on that alone. Yeah. If you win them second balls against this United team, especially in the middle of the park, is soft. And a lot of the time we lose them battles in midfield. And then they say midfield is where the game's won and lost. And literally 9 times out of 10, we lose that midfield battle because we don't have that kind of physicality where they can win that tackle, win that second ball, and make that challenge. And that's where we often lose that game, and that's where we do come undone a lot. And especially against Liverpool on Sunday, like you have players like Gravenberch, McAllister. I reckon Wirtz doesn't start on Sunday. I reckon Szoboszlai will be in there. I reckon they'll beef it up to really bully us in midfield. And I think that's a more physical midfield, and like we've seen actually in the Europa League final, like when Spurs actually had the injuries and they had to play the physical players in the middle of the park, it actually became a problem for us because it probably would have been an easier game for us to play if they're Madisons, they're Bergvalls, and them players were fit. That would have been an easier game for us to play. But because Spurs had the injuries in that final, they had to play them defensive-minded players. And because they did, they were winning the battles in midfield. And because of Amorim's system and his insistence on playing 2 in the middle of the park, Spurs were able to control that game against us in that Europa League final. And I think that's where when we play against teams who have a bit of strength in midfield, who have numbers in midfield, they can overload us, they can win second balls, and then we're at nothing then. Because like Lee said, the wing backs don't create too much. Their decision making is poor. But then I suppose the number 10 / strikers become isolated because we don't have regular patterns to play, but also we get done in transition as well. And that's just the problem with this system in general. But on this system, because I know we all love it and we all love it to death, and we wish we could play something else. We're going to get started 11 predictions, and then I'm going to move on to a little topic before we wrap up because it's a debate that's been raging since the last few years. It's been ridiculous. So I have to bring it up to the two lads. Can I come to you first, Phil? What's your predicted 11 for Sunday?
I think pretty much a similar team to the Sunderland game. I'm going to go with a couple of changes from that, but pretty much the same. So Lemons in net. I think obviously for him, great debut, clean sheet, made a couple of good saves. I think he'll start again. Obviously, this is a big game for him, and hopefully, if it goes well for him, this will give him a lot of confidence because this kind of fixture so early on in his career could be it could go one or two ways actually. If it goes well, it's great, and obviously it gives you a lot of confidence, but it could go the other way and obviously knock his confidence. But I'm hoping he'll do all right again. So gonna go for him in net. I think 3 at the back at the moment probably picking themselves. I think it's going to be De Ligt, Yoro and Luke Shaw. And then I think the wing backs will be, I'll go for Dorgu. I think obviously a little bit more defensive. So I think he'll start. The only one I'm not sure about, because who did you say when I spoke to you before? Did you say someone was who wasn't fit?
Mazraoui has to train, but they don't know if he's going to start on Sunday.
Right. So it's probably going to be Dalot then, isn't it, or someone like that. So we'll go for Dalot, and then I think midfield you're going to have Bruno, Casemiro. I think we'd probably go, and Buemo said I think he's, for me, probably the one in the front three that's picking themselves at the moment. I think he starts Sesko, obviously after being in quite good form in the last couple of weeks. And obviously the 50-50 call for me this week is probably, does he stay with Mount or does Cunha come back into the team, which is, a sort of toss of a coin, really. I think just because of the fixture and obviously, as we say, what he's done offensively and defensively, he'll go for Mason Mount just to hopefully give us that little bit of security as well in the defensive side of things. And then obviously you've got Cunha maybe to come on and give us that little bit of extra quality towards the end of the game if we maybe need a goal or something. As well as, a couple of others. Obviously, Xerxes we touched on, he could maybe come on and add that little bit of quality in the final third. So yeah, I think that's the team I'm going to go for this week.
I think it's probably going to be the 1 week where I think most of our lineups are probably going to be the same. Would you be the same, Lee? What's your predicted 11?
Exactly the same as what Phil's just gone with me. Exactly the same. I'll just read it out. Lemon's in net, Stillett, Yoro Shaw. I think he's going to play Dorgu and Dalot regardless. I told you the idea would he have put Ahmad in there, but I think he's going to go defensive first. So I think he's going to play more of a defensive strategy first, hoping that he can, still be in the game with 60 minutes to go. I then wondered who we'd put in there with Fernandes. I wondered with obviously Casemiro playing at the weekend. Was it midweek with Brazil? Not having much time back, but obviously it's on a Sunday, so we'd have got that extra day. I wondered whether we start Ugarte or Casemiro, but I went with Casemiro. I think, like I say, Liverpool is going to be one of our midfield, and I think he's probably one of our more bullish midfielders than Ugarte. He'll probably get stuck in a little bit more, so that's the reason I went with Casemiro. I went with Buemo again, not droppable at the minute. Although again, his final bit in the final third could be a little bit better. He just needs to improve that. I think when that starts coming in, he gets his confidence with that. There's going to be some player. Sesko, you cannot drop Sesko as our main striker. He scored 2 out of 2. It cannot drop him. If he drops him, he's going to drop his confidence. So they need to keep him in there. And I genuinely think he's going to stay with Mount on the left. And I think he's going to look at it that if we are still in the game within 60 minutes, what a great player to bring on. Cunha could replace Mount for that little bit of individual brilliance. Ahmad could come on for Dalot to give us a little bit more going forward to try and nick the win. And then you've got a tiring Casemiro in midfield. You've got your options of Mainu and Ugarte to bring on to freshen that up too. So yeah, the exact same team as Phil went with me.
And to cut through it, I went 10 out of the 11. I just went with Mazraoui at right wing back if he's fit. Because I think he's just better. If he's going to go defensive, he may, with the wing backs, he may as well go Mazraoui ahead of Dalot, because Mazraoui's more disciplined and Dalot just can't cross his legs either.
Don't get me wrong, Keane. If I had the choice and Mazraoui was fit, I would 100% play Mazraoui and Dalot wouldn't be starting. I just don't.
Yeah, I just feel like if he's fit, play him. I just don't rate Dalot. What you say, Phil?
Yeah, I'm the same. Sorry, I'm the same as Lee. I think if Mazraoui's available and he's fit, then I'd probably start him ahead of Dalot as well. So I was the same as you said.
If it was me against Liverpool, I would 100% be playing a back 4-2 just to put that out there. I would not go with this formation against Liverpool. I would 100% go with a back 4.
Yeah, we just know he's not gonna. He's just not going to deviate. Now he might look. He could just go purely radical on Saturday night and be like, "Yeah, let's rock up to Anfield with a 4-3-3 and let's hit him now where it hurts." But there's two hopes in that now: Bob hope and no hope that's going to happen. But before I get score predictions from you lads, there's a debate that I think comes up every single international break, and people are writing their all-time Premier League 11s and they're writing all their best players in all these positions. All of a sudden, in the last year or 2-3 years, there's been this raging debate: Cristiano Ronaldo or Mohamed Salah in the Premier League. Right, I'm gonna. You both play with Ronaldo, so like you obviously have seen this phenomenon firsthand, right? We've obviously seen these done at Real Madrid and Juventus, and even when he came back. Mo Salah is a good player. I just want to preface this very first because I know my family who are Liverpool fans are probably watching this too. So I want to make this very clear. I think Mo Salah is a sensational footballer, sensational goal scorer. But one of these players has won a Ballon d'Or and 3 Premier Leagues in a row. I don't think this is a debate. I'd love to get your opinions though on this.
Which one? Do you want me to go first?
Whichever, crack on.
I'm
Go on,
very short, mate. There's no debate, zero debate. One's a fantastic player and one's a generational talent, and that's it. There's no, in my opinion, there's no debate. One of them's one of the world's best ever, and one of them is a very, very good player. But you're not comparing Salah for me to Ronaldo. Not a chance, mate.
I think the only argument that people might have, which for me doesn't really, stack up when you look at what Ronaldo did in probably a shorter space of time, is probably the longevity, because of obviously Salah having, am I right? He's had nearly 10 years. Is it nearly 10 years now in the Prem, or is it more? I don't actually know.
If you count his time at Chelsea, but if we're counting 2 spells, Ronaldo's spell at United, second spell at United, was better than Salah's spell at Chelsea. So,
yeah. I mean, to be fair, there's only one winner for me, and how much I like Ronaldo. The only thing I was going to say was the Premier League maybe debate with the Salah situation would only be judged on probably longer time period of being there, and obviously a better goal maybe ratio. But obviously as players, and obviously what Ronaldo did at his time at United, I say he won a Ballon d'Or, 3 Premier Leagues, and what he's done in world football, I don't think there is a debate really. But that's nothing against Salah, because Salah's an outstanding player. He's done amazing. He's probably going to be, one of Liverpool's greatest ever players as well. So nothing to sort of, shy away from losing a sort of debate against Ronaldo. But yeah, he's not really in the same category for me as Cristiano, unfortunately for him.
yeah, and even like if you look at Premier League era, I think you have to look at trophies that they won in the Premier League, and I think Ronaldo's won 3 Premier Leagues. Obviously, Salah's won 2. But if you look at the time gap between Salah's 2 league titles, there's a 5-year gap, and there's a lot of second places in there. And I'm like, when Ronaldo was at his pomp in the Premier League, he won 3 titles in a row. He won a Champions League, one League Cup, another a League Cup in that spell as well. Actually, he won 2 League Cups. He won 2 League Cups, and as well as that, we won the Club World Cup. Like, you look all them trophies he won, and let's say in that time span, and then even before that, when he was like 18, 19, he won the FA Cup as well. So when you look at it from that perspective, it was just trophies every season bar one, wasn't it? When Ronaldo was at the club, he won a trophy in every season bar one.
Yeah. It'd be interesting. You might know this, Keane, but like, what's the stats in terms of like Ronaldo's appearances, goals, trophies won in his period in the Premier League compared to Salah's? Because obviously I know Salah's going to have more appearances in the Premier League because of his like longevity, but I don't know. There must be some way of sort of, working it out and looking at the stats. Even though it's not a debate, I would be interested maybe to just sort of see where they stacked up in terms of, because there'd probably be a better debate maybe for Salah with, somebody else. Maybe like, I'm trying to think of
Eden Hazard.
somebody
Eden
else who
Hazard
you
and
could
Salah
maybe
is the
compare him
perfect debate,
to.
I
Like,
think, Phil.
Hazard. Yeah. I mean, to be fair, I'd say Salah above Hazard, but even that's sort of, not by a lot, because Hazard was, incredible when he was at Chelsea. I think maybe just because he dipped off when he went to Madrid and didn't finish his career as well, people probably don't appreciate how good of a player he was. But yeah,
I'm grabbing them
definitely
appearances
not.
and goals for you now, Phil.
Yeah, just
them stats.
doesn't have to be.
So Mo Salah has made 295 appearances in the Premier League, scoring 186 goals. Cristiano Ronaldo has made 236 appearances, scoring 103 goals.
Yeah. But you've got to
So
put into context. I think Salah was his actual prime, and obviously he's had, 2 spells, and Ronaldo was only a kid, like sort of, and then obviously went on to do what he did at Real Madrid and, do all that kind of thing. So yeah, that sounds about right, to be honest, what I was expecting.
Yeah, and I think also as well, if you're taking their whole Premier League legacy, I think you have to look at both because they've had 2 spells, not just one spell. And I think if you look at, let's say, Ronaldo's second spell, scoring 24 goals in that Ralph Rangnick season at 37 years of age, as opposed to Salah's spell at Chelsea,
Yeah.
And then Paul leaves a comment in there as well, said, plus Ronaldo is a wide winger, Salah is in the front 3.
I actually seen something about. I seen another podcast this week, and there was even debating Salah being the best that Liverpool's had in the Premier League, and people were saying the likes of Robbie Fowler and Michael Owen. There was actually debating against them with Salah too, and that was a Liverpool podcast.
Who would be there in your opinion? Because obviously you'd be slightly older than me, so you would have seen Liverpool early 90s. Who's Liverpool's best player in the Premier League era? Because I know there's a massive debate on who's United's. Who's Liverpool's, do you think?
For me, I think it would come down to Salah or Michael Owen. I think it would be between them two, if I'm being honest. When obviously Owen was on top form, he was a phenomenal player. I think it would probably come down to them two. But then again, you can't discount Robbie Fowler. What he did at Liverpool, he was an unbelievable. What's that, sorry?
Would you not have Gerrard, Stevie G? Or are you on about attackers here?
I'm going on about attackers myself personally, but I think if you're looking at like Stevie, you're going over players.
Sorry, I've just thought you meant like in Liverpool's Premier League, because I think if you asked 99% of Liverpool supporters, they'd probably say Gerrard. But if you're talking about attackers, for me, when I was growing up, Robbie Fowler, when I just appreciated football and was watching all the best strikers, for me, it was Robbie Fowler, it was Alan Shearer, it was Thierry Henry, it was Andy Cole, it was, when I went to United, it was Van Nistelrooy, all these type of players. So, yeah, Michael Owen obviously as well. They were the players where, you're off your seat and you're watching players who can finish balls, left foot, right foot, headers, anything, whatever you like. So, yeah, I think obviously Liverpool have always been like United. I've really up until the last couple of years have always been blessed with great attacking players. Over the years, Liverpool they've had Suarez, Torres.
I was just going to say Fernando Torres is another one. He was phenomenal. Yeah, Fernando Torres Liverpool was unbelievable. That's another one. What you put in the out one.
Yeah. For that little spell, he didn't do it maybe for quite as long, but for that like 2 or 3 years, Torres was sort of unplayable. And same for Suarez, to be fair, when he came in, he was, incredible in that short spell that he was at Liverpool. Maybe just weren't there for long enough to probably be in the debate for the best of all time, maybe in Liverpool's, list of players. But yeah, quality players.
Yeah, I think Premier League era, you're talking their best player Premier League era. The best player Premier League era, I definitely say is Steven Gerrard for me. In terms of like that for Liverpool. I think their best forward Premier League era is either Suarez or maybe I'm showing my age here. I'm thinking Suarez maybe for his short spell, Michael Owen or Salah. I think they're the three for me if I had to look at their best forwards Premier League era. Probably them. I'm just thinking I'm trying to account trophies when I'm talking about individual talent as well as goals as well.
I'll tell you.
I'll tell you
some player. I'm sure he played in the Premier League. Ian Rush. He was a phenomenal player too, wasn't
he? Yeah. John Barnes as well. Like there's loads of players where you've probably thought they've not maybe played. Yeah. Because I think a lot of them played in the old Division 1, and then when it changed to the Premier League, they maybe played a little bit and then came towards the end. So maybe sort of on the crossover, because obviously that's when it changed, when a lot of them players were maybe coming towards the end of their careers. But McManaman as well, Steve McManaman, another quality player. He went to Real Madrid as well, and obviously did well there. So him and Robbie Fowler had a brilliant little partnership going at one stage in the sort of 90s. So yeah, there's them kind of players as well who maybe get a bit overlooked.
That was when football was football, Keane. That was the good old days of football.
Yeah, back when players didn't dive, eh?
Yeah. The only time they dove is when they got a kick and they landed over someone's head. That's the only time they dove.
I seen Paul's comment in here says Sturridge for about 9 months. Yeah, he was unbelievable for that one season. He was a good player, but we could debate on who United's best striker is in the Premier League era, but we'll be here for the night if we go with that, because we definitely have all, we'll be here for the night on that one. That might be our next. We were meant to do a show on the international break last week, but we didn't get to it. That may be something in the international break in 3 weeks, lads. We can debate our greatest United players, because I dare to say we'll have a.
Do you know what you need to do? You need to get all the stats, Keane, of like, obviously, probably just off the top of my head, Andy Cole, Van Nistelrooy, Rooney. Get all the goals to game ratios and like what they won, and we'll have a little debate on who we think is the best that we've had.
We'll have to get Wayne on that show as well. We'll have to get Wayne on there because, he's a historian. We have to. Yeah. We have to. I know we're going meeting and everything for a night out in Manchester. We should live stream our debate at the bar. Luckily, I don't drink anymore, so I can let the lads drink a load of pints, and I can come with all the stats then on that one. But we will wrap it up there. Actually, we won't wrap it up there. I need to get your score predictions quickly before we go. I'll get yours firstly. What do you think the score is going to be?
Don't want to do it. I don't want to do it, and I don't very often do it, but I'm going to go with my head and not my heart, and I'm going to go for a 3-1 win off Liverpool.
So Lee has gone 3-1 Liverpool, so I'll lock that in. Phil, what's your score prediction for Sunday?
As I said before, I think United definitely score. I think Liverpool also definitely score. But I'm going to go a little bit more positive. I'm going to go for a draw. I'm going to go for 2-2 draw. Yeah, I'm going to go for a score draw.
Bill's going to Desmond. Roy Keane loves a Desmond. I love a Desmond. But I'm not going to Desmond today. It's not happening. The last score prediction I done for a Man United game, I done a 1-0 away win. This time, I'm going for a 1-0 away win, and I'm going for Man United to win and get 3 points at Anfield. We're doing it nearly 10 years to the day where we last won a game at Anfield and it was 1-0. I'm going 1-0. I've locked the predictions in now. It's on screen. I can't go back now. Man United are going to Anfield. They're getting the 3 points. And do you know what? Do you know who's getting the winner? Do you know who's going to get it? Mateus Cunha, Lee Lawrence's favourite player. He's going to come off the bench, score a winner on Sunday. You can lock that in now. Aidan, I know you're a Liverpool fan. You can screenshot this, screen record it, all you want. We're going to Anfield. We're gonna paint the town red, and we're gonna get them 3 points. And I'm gonna be coming for you on Monday in work. That's exactly what's going to happen. I'm saying that with chest. Aidan's gone 2-2. Paul is gone with a 2-1 win, 2-1 Man United win. So we've draws, we've wins. Most importantly, we hope Manchester United get the 3 points on Sunday. But on that, we will wrap up there. Do like and subscribe. We will be back next week to review, obviously, Sunday's match and also build up to the Brighton game next week as well. So do smash the like and get them notifications on the YouTube app so you get a notification instantly when we go live. And as always, we really do appreciate your support. Thanks again to Lee, and also thanks again to Phil for jumping on. And we'll see you next week, lads.